everyone and welcome back. It's finally here. Carved in Stone is here. It's released today. You can order it. It's wonderful and I am so excited for you all to read it. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me try and be professional. So, Carved in Stone, A Storyteller's Guide to the Picts, released today. The link is in the description down below. It's an illustrated and comprehensive book for anyone interested in Scotland's past. I like to think of it a bit like a travel guide or a cultural handbook for the Picts in late 7th century Scotland. It covers things like Pictish cuisine, Pictish architecture, the languages people spoke, the kinds of people you might meet on the road, the list goes on. The Picts were an early medieval Scottish society who began in the 3rd to 4th centuries CE and never so much stopped as merged with other groups to become Scotland as we know it today. They initially formed a lot of smaller kingdoms across northern and northeastern Scotland, but by the late 7th century, they've unified into a single kingdom under King Bredais mac Bailly or King Bredais III. But even though they're a huge part of Scottish history, the Picts are usually represented rather one-dimensionally in popular culture. You know the trope of blue-painted or blue-tattooed Scottish warriors? Those are the Picts, or at least they're supposed to be. But that stereotype, like all stereotypes, isn't accurate in the slightest. Carved in Stone was designed by myself, Stout Stoat Press and the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland to show you the latest archaeological research about the Picts in a way that's more engaging and also generally more affordable than things like academic articles. And as you've probably guessed if you're familiar with my channel, the Picts were like any other human society. Complicated. They had intricate cultural practices that responded to, built upon, and even contributed to that of their neighbours. They were internationally connected too. More Pictish abbots or saints came from places like what is now modern Greece or Turkey or Rome than you might think. And there are Africans in what is now the UK in this period too. Just take a look at Hadrian of Canterbury. Pictish people also had a system for working with disabled and chronically ill people. There was even a whole monastery on the Isle of May dedicated to helping the most severe cases. The Isle of May is in the Firth of Forth, right on top of a major sea route for both Pictland and Northumbria. The Picts were skilled artisans and craftspeople too, making intricate carved stones, silver brooches, and even detailed bone pins. Archaeologists across Scotland are uncovering more Pictish sites and artifacts every single year, so we're likely to find even more of these lovely pieces in the future. As for those blue-painted or blue-tattooed warriors, well, the Picts certainly were fierce warriors. They not only held off the Romans, they repeatedly raided the invading forces throughout their time in what is now Scotland. The Picts are a big reason Hadrian's Wall was built, after all, but there's far more to Pictish life than war. And as far as the tattoos go, we simply don't see evidence for it. The jury's out, honestly. Tattoos aren't something that would survive in Scottish archaeology because we would need skin to survive, and that doesn't happen in our rather damp climate unless someone fell into a bog. The Picts also never carved people with tattoos in their stone art, but they carved a lot of people into stone, and they could get very detailed when they wanted to, so not including tattoos might indicate that they didn't have them. And none of their neighbours mention the Picts as having tattoos either, so it's possible that it just wasn't a thing. But they certainly had the technology, and as I said, a lot of the evidence for tattoos simply wouldn't survive in Scottish archaeology. So we think that tattoos were probably about as common as they are in Scotland today. Some folks had a lot, some folks had a few, and many folks probably didn't have any. But they also probably weren't just blue. A lot of folk get rather fixated on the Picts as having blue tattoos made with woad, which is a lovely little plant that grows wild here in Scotland. But woad doesn't work in tattooing, in fact it's incredibly dangerous. It's caustic, so it literally burns through your skin and leaves vicious scars behind that are definitely not blue. Plenty of tattoo artists have tested it on themselves, so definitely do not try it at home. You don't need to, the research has been done, it's incredibly dangerous. Woad might have been used for body paint, but even then, the source that everyone uses to say that the Picts used woad on their bodies is an incredibly generalised statement that Julius Caesar said about Celtic peoples living in what is now Kent. That's almost 700 kilometres or over 400 miles away as the crow flies from Pictland. That's like saying that people are French Canadian in Montreal and often speak French, and that therefore means that most people in Baltimore are also mostly French Canadian and often speak French. Or like saying that the cultural practices of Budapest, Hungary and Bologna, Italy are identical. We made Carved in Stone to tell you all about the Picts and to set the record straight on a lot of the stereotypes that people tend to make about them. And you don't need to just take my word for it. Dr. Catherine Forsyth, Professor of Celtic Studies at the University of Glasgow and world-leading expert on Ogham, which is one of the writing systems used by the Picts, has said such a lot of thought and care has gone into this painstaking recreation of what it was like to live in Scotland in the 7th century. The result is a fresh perspective which is wonderfully creative, yet grounded in thorough research and accessible in our age. The Picts emerge from the shadows and step forward in Technicolor. And I'll try not to toot our own horns too much, but Dr. Adrián Maldonado, project curator for the Scottish Archaeological Human Remains Collection at National Museum Scotland, and expert on Pictish burial practices and early Christianity in Scotland, called Carved in Stone, quote, basically the best book on the Picts ever written. And he says that by starting from Scotland's environment and incorporating lessons from archaeology, history, and art, this book brings the Picts to life more effectively than any other depiction he's seen. I cannot wait for you all to get your hands on a copy of this book, and I especially can't wait to see what Pictish stories you come up with. Also, this book is huge. This is how big it is compared to like a textbook size book. It's enormous. It's more like the size of a coffee table book, and it is full of incredible artwork. You can order the book now through the link in the description below, and if you're curious what kinds of stories I'm creating with Carved in Stone, check out my video series where I bring the book into Minecraft. That's all from me for today. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!